Hello and welcome to this staff edition of the We Are LPS podcast. I am joined with our superintendent, Mr. Hime. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. You know, ever-changing world we live in right now.
That's right. So I appreciate your time with our podcast here. Today is something special for our staff. We're going to ask some of the questions that you have been wondering about, and we brought in Mr. Hime to share some of that. So the first thing, Mr. Hime, we want to talk about is Return to Learn. What's it look like?
Well, for staff, it's, again, we've talked a lot about flexibility, and we understand our staff, they have some concerns about what it looks like. I want to reiterate that we are working hard to ensure the safety of our staff. So we're going to we're going to follow CDC guidelines, what the state puts out, and we're looking to follow their directions as we develop that final plan. If we started school tomorrow, we would require masks in some degree, but again, we don't start school tomorrow. We still got a month before the first day of school. So in the next few weeks, we're going to start finalizing that plan. We're going to start reaching out to staff. One of the reasons we're talking today is to give them some feedback and start asking for their feedback on some things we can do to make them feel safe. Because first of all, the most important people to us are our teachers. And we need our teachers to be successful. Therefore, we need them to feel safe so they can do a great job of teaching our students.
And when you talk about safety, I know some of the concerns are, what does school look like when they come back, and what are some of the measures that we're taking to ensure, reducing the spread of COVID and keeping them and their families safe as well?
Safety is the number one thing. It always is. So we want everyone to feel safe at school as far as students and staff. But the other thing we're really emphasizing is we would love to make school look as much as possible like it always has, and give that option out there. Now, that's going to be a struggle for some of our students and some of our adults, so we're putting some flexibility options out there. One of the things I would encourage a lot of our staff right now is we really want to create a work environment that's safe for everyone. Now, is that possible? I can't tell you. But if any staff members have restrictions or feel like they're restricted in how they can work or in what environment they can work in, they need to start communicating with their medical professionals and start getting us a list of what that safe environment looks like for them, because I can't create a safe environment for you to work in until I know exactly what a safe environment is for you. And can we meet everyone's needs? I think it's going to be really difficult, but that's going to be our ultimate goal, is to create a safe environment for every teacher, every student, and every staff member, so we can continue to have school and do the number one thing we're supposed to do, and that's for kids to learn.
Now, when we talk about some of the procedures, we have our mask on, we wear them every day here. And what are some of the things that they can expect when they come back to have to take care of sanitation in the classrooms, sharing of items? And
we haven't come out exactly yet and said how we're going to mandate masks and to what level. The state's starting to push, you're starting to see some push out from state agencies. Our governor tested positive, so that's probably going to ramp it up a little bit. What's the lot, we don't know what the city of Lawton will do. So there's going to be various levels. We are going to have some mandates, and again, we're going to follow those CDC guidelines. If it's recommended by the medical experts that we require masks on all adults, all teachers, all students, we're going to do that the best we can to make it work, for the safety of everyone involved. So that's an ever-working deal, but we're listening to you, we're listening to the health department, we're listening to the CDC, and we're going to try to make a plan, because I don't claim to be the expert. Again, in the end, we have to establish that plan, and it's a very tough thing, because we're trying to make everyone happy and balance it. So it'll be something we put together with the experts, and safety of our staff will be a huge component in consideration in that plan.
Now, you mentioned the governor testing positive, and so that's been a question too from our staff. How does that look if, maybe their family member or they have tested positive? What does that mean for them in the classroom?
It's interesting, because there's so many variants, and it's hard to understand. Actually, the governor was in Lawton shortly before he tested positive, and I was there, and I wore a mask, and I took a picture with him, so I took the mask down so that, you could see who I was in the picture. That was the extent of my contact with him, and that was not considered close contact. I did myself go get tested. Haven't got the results back yet just because of the close contact. Again, I've been wearing a mask because we know I wear a mask to protect you. For the most part, you wear a mask to protect me. And so we hope that consideration increases that level. Even if we're recommending a mask, people wear masks because we wear them to protect you. Now, if one of our staff members tests positive, obviously they get the same protections as far as privacy. The expectations is they're going to go quarantine. They have sick leave. There are days out there, but how that leave and how you get paid when you're sick, and that's really going to be balanced out on the state level. It's a tough thing for us as school leaders. But although I'm responsible for all the money that Lawton Public School has, and again, that's my ultimate responsibility, how it's spent, there are still laws and regulations of how we spend it because it's taxpayer money. So I can't just decide to pay somebody if they're not working. So there has to be a leave or some law or regulation, tied to that before we pay. Right now there's still through December 31st, there's still some COVID leave as they call it, where they get days if they're required to quarantine. They all get their sick days that they can use. So we're going to do everything we can within the law to pay people when they're sick and when they're not able to work for various reasons due to the COVID virus.
Now, we know we have a lot of staff members that are essential. So even with our teachers, but we also talk about our support staff. What does it look like for them in the same regard of child nutrition, transportation, our bus drivers? What can we say to them?
Bus drivers, people, you don't think about it, but that's a very important because they're picking students up at different places. They're dropping off at different sites. There's a lot of variances there. So, right now we're saying we're going to have our bus drivers wear a mask. We're going to have them sanitize the buses in between routes, when the buses are empty. And sanitation's a big thing. We're really trying to up the ante on how much sanitation devices we have district-wide. So, child nutrition, we're going to sanitize the cafeteria. We're looking at how we're looking at prepackaging meals so that it's just a grab and go in all of our meals. And how do we make that a quality meal? We don't want grab and go. It sounds great. The kids grab it and go back to their classroom, or grab it and go to different areas so they can, create social distancing. And we don't get 100 students in one area in a tight confines. But we've still got to have quality food. No one, grab and go sounds great until it's not edible or it's not something that's good. So, we're working really hard on that. Our child nutrition department is doing, Daniel Grab and his team, they're doing a great job of making that work for us. All the classrooms we're installing in some form or fashion. We're going to install hand sanitizer in there so every teacher will have it. We're working to find ways for the teachers, in the classes that change where they can sanitize the desk in between. We're going to highly recommend or mandate seating charts so there's only a certain amount of people throughout a week sitting at the same desk, so that social distancing is kind of the best it could. So at least if some student tests positive, we don't look up and say, well, they sat by 8 different students on 3 different days. We know they only sat by these 3 students these 3 days. So those would be some things we really work hard on. And again, we got a month, CDC, state, local, federal government, they're going to put out think about a month ago, temperatures were everything. A month ago, it was like we're looking at ways to, how are we going to check 1,400 students' temperature as they walk into Freedom Elementary? How are we going to check 1,400 high school kids' temperature as they walk into Lawton High School? Today, you don't hear that checking temperatures. Now they're saying for young, that over 90% of young people who get COVID are asymptomatic, so why are we checking their temperatures? It's really irrelevant. And so in 2 weeks from now, they say there's no way you can let anybody in the building if you don't check their temperature. So it's ever changing. We are following and adapting. We're welcoming input. This is a team effort. So feel free to submit your questions, submit your input, and I can guarantee you we're listening to it and paying attention to what everyone has to say, especially our valued staff members.
Right, and you mentioned something about the class sizes, and that also is dependent on the number of students that we actually have come back to brick and mortar. So
that's probably going to be the hardest thing because we work hard to protect our teachers, but protect their time. Through the years as administrators, and I'm new to Lawton as a superintendent, and exactly how everything works, but we know we work hard, protecting a lunchtime for them. In some cases, teachers are going to struggle to find that time to eat lunch by themselves because we're going to have teachers in some areas eating in classrooms. It's just going to be very flexible and fluid, and that's something we're going to have to work hard for safety to make it work, because we may have 10 students change from today to tomorrow, from now to, they may go, just man, school's a little scary, let's go virtual. So that class went from 22 to 12, and then there's another class over there that's still at 27. So give us time to balance things out. And, that's our hope, that we can work really hard with our staff to make it flexible and get their support to know that this is challenging, not only for them, but for the principals and the counselors and everyone else who's trying to keep that balance.
Right, and information is changing quite frequently. We sit in meetings every day and trying to figure out the best plan. So before we take a break, is there anything else you want to cover in regards of staff safety and healthcare?
I just want to make sure our staff does know that, we're listening, we care, and we're doing everything we can to ensure their safety. It's going to be very difficult for all of us. Getting back to work's a little scary. It's scary for the people now, but we're going to do the things we can to protect you. Most of us know that if we can, we need to get our students back in school, get them back where they can have meetings with their teachers, and we can build those relationships, and we can engage in learning. If that doesn't happen, we'll go virtual. And, we've got to, we're working really hard to find a way for virtual learning to be more than maintaining, it's just introducing new standards. So, staff, you guys are it. We know that. We're looking out for you, and we want your input.
All right, and when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about the educational aspect and how that looks for you guys when you come back into the classroom. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back, LPS staff. Mr. Hime, before we took a break, we were getting ready to talk about what it looks like in the classroom. So let's talk about the curriculum access, the educational opportunities, and the training that's going to have to start to take place.
Well, first of all, our goal is to start school as regular on the 21st. Teachers were scheduled to report on the 18th. We're going to look at teachers coming in on the 17th so we can do some more virtual, because we know that we're going to have to do more training on delivering quality lessons virtually. And then the 10th through the 14th, we're going to have some optional things out there where teachers can take part in to improve their abilities to do those things, because we know this is going to be a challenge for us all. We're trying to create some content so we can deliver that content, and how we deliver the content. We have to get better at it, and it is new, and we want to be the best at it, because teaching a student to read from home is a challenge. Teaching chemistry at home is a challenge, and we have to find a way to improve on those. So again, we're going to have some optional training August 10th through 14th. We're going to ask everybody to come in a day early, the 17th. Again, the calendar's shorter this year than it was last, so there's really, we're not trying to take advantage of it or whatever, but if you look, the contract's 180 and there's only 75 days in the contract, so there are some optional in the calendar. So there are some optional days there. So we're going to really work on getting everybody back to 17th to have that one extra day of training. Most of the professional development is going to be delivering lessons virtually, and how we make that work, and how do we make it where it's very close to the same. So teachers aren't trying to figure out how to work in the classroom and how to do it virtually. How do we make that one and the same? How do we make it where the teacher has one preparation, one lesson plan, one delivery, and it's seamless, and students can get that delivery from home or in the classroom, and it works for students and teachers.
Well, and then you did talk about what it looks like for the teachers to go virtually. I know there were some concerns about, I teach all day in the traditional model, and then I'm supposed to go at home at night and do for my hybrid kids that are actually, can you clarify what we're doing already for that?
Well, our goal with that is, what you do for your hybrid kids, we'll monitor their progress, but our goal is that we have teachers available who are our virtual teachers, will team with our traditional teachers to teach the hybrid students. So if a student's hybrid at 2 o'clock and they need help, they will contact their virtual teacher. We're also looking at some flexibility. Again, we're working really hard on flexibility. Can we find a way to open up some night classes, 4 to 8? Can we find some teachers that may want to work different hours and have a different schedule, so we can offer varying schedules? Again, everything's on the table. We talked a little bit, people talk about the AB schedule and the come some days or, half a day schedules. And, although those things are challenging to me to put out there, because I think they become very challenging to our families and our parents. And I don't think they make teachers jobs easier, because having 10 kids today and 10 different ones tomorrow, you still have 20 kids and teaching 2 days a week. So, somebody's got to teach them virtually when you're not teaching them. And I just think it creates challenges in itself. So hopefully, we've got it all on the table. We're looking at it, and how we make that work that's best for students and teachers and staff members, parents, is a challenge, but we have a lot of great people working hard on it to make that work. And again, that's why we're right now coming out. We're starting to seek your input, and we're going to start presenting some of these plans and asking teachers for feedback, and hoping to get some really good, honest feedback on what will work and what won't work, so we can continue to get better.
Now, speaking of providing, a good educational opportunity for our students, we do have some special ed teachers out there that are kind of concerned about what can they do for their student that is virtual or hybrid. What does that look for them?
And, and that's going to be another challenge in itself that we don't give, our EL, our special ed, our specials, our students that have varying levels of special circumstances that they need to be met. That's going to be a challenge in itself. I know our special ed department right now, they're working on how they make that look. How do we team with the classroom teacher? How do we team with the virtual teacher? How do we make that a team creating or accomplishing that goal? So again, I think for the same thing we say, to get through this COVID, we all have to work together. That's staff, that's parents, that's students. I mean, it becomes a team, and we all have to pull the rope in the same direction and really work hard to do what's best for students, and we can get this done. And we can't be rigid. Even myself, I can be pretty, I'm the superintendent. I said, this is what we're going to do. I've got to listen. And that's not always easy for us as administrators, and especially, executive administrators, is to listen. But I have to listen. I have to listen to what your needs are. I have to listen to your concerns, and I have to be able to develop the plan and make those recommendations based upon what a lot of people recommended and the thought, and accumulate all of that. You can't just be me. Can't just be me and 3 people. It's got to be a group of people working together to put this plan together. And then when the plan's put together, it's got to be flexible.
Now, when we're talking about flexibility, we have amazing, extracurricular teachers out there in our band and our music and our speech. What should their expectations be as we move forward?
Hopefully, we're able to have all those things. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is that, because they're important. They're very important, and those teachers are important. I played football, coached football for years, and never considered a band important until I coached at a school that didn't have a band. And how much did I miss the band coaching at schools that didn't have the band? So the band's very important, even if you're a football coach. Sometimes those are 2 different things. And it's very important to the families who that is their extracurricular activity. So we have to work hard to try to make those things happen in some form or fashion. Each one of them offers their own challenges. Can you teach somebody virtually to play an instrument? I can't play an instrument, and I've never taught anybody to play an instrument. So, again, that's one of those things you got to leave up to the experts. It's the same thing we talked about with reading. I can't claim that I've ever taught a student to read. I know people who have. So we have to rely upon them to try to help develop those ways that we can virtually teach students to read, virtually teach students to play instruments. We have our fax classes and such, and can we virtually teach some of those things? And it's going to be a challenge.
What about internet access for those families that are staff members, especially that may live in rural areas and they're worried about technology? Would they be allowed to come back? How does that look?
And that's our ultimate goal, is that the schools are open. We have not heard any rumors that they're going to lock the schools down like they did in April and May and not allow us to have our staff to have access. Obviously, we're purchasing Chromebooks for all of our students, and iPads for our younger students, and we are purchasing some Wi-Fi availability for students who need it, who don't have Wi-Fi access. So we're working hard on some of those things. We'll continue to work with our staff on that. But the ultimate goal there would be that classroom is open, because a lot think, as long as it's safe to do so, for a teacher to come back in their classroom and virtually deliver lessons may be more effective than them virtually delivering from home or other settings. So, we're going to encourage some of those things, but if we only knew what tomorrow was going to bring, it would be a lot easier to make some of these decisions. So I still think motto here is we're working hard, we're listening, we're flexible. Safety's our utmost concern. But this ever-changing world makes it tough. It may be a day or two before you get this out, and somebody may see this 3 days from now, and how much will change within the 3 days that they see it.
Now, as we prepare to end this podcast, there are a lot of questions that our staff have, and we're working really hard to get them answered and provide a framework, right? So is there anything you want to just kind of include as we prepare to end this one?
Again, the main thing I have is if you as staff have your personal concerns, you need to start relaying those to your principal. Your personal circumstances that are going to cause you struggles or be cause roadblocks for you or create a difficult situation for you. We need to start communicating those, because we need to start getting a good idea about our staff and what is a safe working environment for you and for you and for you. And so start relaying those to your principals and to your leaders as we move up. And, feel free to submit your questions, because we get a lot of questions, but sometimes they're the same questions. But we do look through the questions. And I will tell you, there's times we see questions, oh, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. We're going to have to go back and rethink this because we didn't think of that. So it's not that we're not listening to everybody. It's still, we have over 2,000 employees. We can't put them all in a room. Obviously, we couldn't do that even if it wasn't for the COVID. But with the COVID, we can't put you all in the same room and ask questions, because that won't work. So we're asking now, submit your questions, ask your principals. Your principals can ask their leaders. We're having day-to-day contact with our administrative leaders, and hopefully they're having day-to-day contact with the principals, and hopefully the principals and teachers are having day-to-day contacts, so that stuff is moving. We have to work really hard that the communication is moving from me to the executives, to the directors, to the principals, to the teachers. But I also want to make sure that the teachers' communications to the principals are going to the directors and back up to me, because that's sometimes communication from the top down works real good, but teachers don't feel like the communication from the teacher to the superintendent's real well. I do care what they think. I do care what everybody thinks, and I want that feedback. So start submitting those things in questions, looking for solutions. And
you did mention about filling out the, survey and responding back to us. We did push out a notification last week with, your opportunity to share concerns in particular areas, and that's in your email. So we want our staff to continue to check their email twice a day and keep in contact.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The communication's important, and just because you're not in the office every day, where you're not seeing your principal face-to-face, where you're not seeing us, it's one reason we're putting out surveys. It's one reason Lynn has put out email addresses specifically for this, so we can gather information. And again, we're going to try to do this every week. We're going to try to put a podcast together every week and talk to you and answer your questions and have that communication. So we're answering what you submit. So submit it. We'll try to get those answers out to you, and hopefully we can all work together and have a great school year.
It will take all of us. So thank you again for your time, Mr. Hime. We are going to wrap this segment up, and we appreciate all of your hard work and your patience. It's important to us, but we're really excited to move forward together as a district and are thankful for your time.
So. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Until next time, you guys, we'll see you later. Have a good one.